Have you ever caught yourself staring out the window, wondering when exactly life started to speed up? Maybe you used to hop out of bed without thinking twice, or remember a time when names, faces, or the reason you walked into a room came to you like second nature. And now, at 70, or maybe a little past it, you find yourself asking, "Am I still doing okay?" If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Aging can feel like walking into uncharted territory. There are aches where there used to be flexibility, naps where there used to be marathons, and sometimes even doubts that creep in like an unexpected visitor. But here's the truth. Getting older isn't about decline, it's about refinement. It's about discovering what really matters, what you're still capable of, and why that still makes you a winner, no matter what the calendar says. Today, I want to talk to you like a good friend over a cup of tea. No charts, no lectures, no fancy lingo. Just 6 simple, real-life things that, if you're still doing them at 70 or beyond, show that you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And if you find yourself nodding along to even a few of these, trust me, you're doing better than you might think. So, let's dive into the first one. It might sound obvious, but it's often overlooked. You can still move with intention. That doesn't mean running marathons or lifting weights like you're 20. It means you can still get up in the morning, put one foot in front of the other, and move through your day with purpose. Maybe you walk to the kitchen and make your favorite breakfast. Maybe you tend to the garden, stretch your arms out to pull a few weeds, or simply walk down the block to say hello to a neighbor. That kind of movement, even when it's gentle, tells us your body is still cooperating. And that, my friend, is no small thing. You see, movement isn't just physical, it's emotional. It gives you confidence. It allows you to be part of the world. Even if you need a cane, even if you take your time getting up from a chair, if you're still choosing to move, still making that decision every day to keep going, you're not losing anything. You're actually gaining power. You're refusing to sit out. You're staying in the game. Now, let's talk about something else that's just as important, maybe even more. You're still curious. Think about that. You still ask questions, want to know what's going on in the world. Or maybe you enjoy reading, listening to music, solving puzzles, or tinkering in the garage. That spark, that hunger to understand or create, is proof that your mind hasn't given up. It's very much alive. Curiosity at 70 isn't about being a trivia champ or solving algebra problems. It's about looking at the world and still finding something to explore. Maybe you're learning how to use a smartphone for the first time, or figuring out how to video call the grandkids. Maybe you read the news and shake your head at how things have changed, but you still care enough to pay attention. That right there, that's vitality. Because the day we stop being curious, the day we stop wondering or wanting to know more, is the day we start to shrink inside. But you haven't. If you still look at life with even a little bit of wonder, you're still growing. And growing, no matter your age, is winning. I remember chatting with a lovely woman named Rosa at a community center a while back. She was 74, and while waiting for her ride, she pulled out a notebook filled with phrases in French. "Why French?" I asked her, and she smiled and said, "Because I've always wanted to say bonjour properly." That's it. No plans to travel to Paris, no deadline, just pure curiosity. That's the kind of quiet courage that keeps us young, right there. And speaking of staying young, here's another sign you're winning at this thing called life. You can still laugh, especially at yourself. At 70, life's probably handed you your fair share of challenges, maybe even more than your fair share. But if you can still find a way to laugh, to lighten the moment, to tell a story with a twinkle in your eye, you've got something incredibly valuable: resilience. Laughter is one of the most powerful tools we have, not just for the joy it brings, but for the perspective it gives. If you've ever chuckled at a mix-up, like putting your glasses in the fridge or calling your granddaughter by the dog's name, and then just laughed and moved on, you're doing just fine. That ability to not take everything too seriously is a strength, not a flaw. It means you've learned that life is too short to waste energy on perfection. It means you figured out how to bounce back, how to find peace in the messiness of everyday life. And it keeps the people around you lighter too, Have you noticed that? When you laugh, others feel like they can let their guard down. That's a gift. So, let's take a breath here. We've talked about moving with purpose, staying curious, and keeping your sense of humor. These aren't flashy skills or dramatic achievements. They're simple, steady signs that you're still fully engaged with life. They're not about having more or doing more. They're about being more present, more alive, more you. And that, more than anything, is what makes this stage of life so rich. Because it's not about proving anything to the world anymore. It's about proving to yourself that you still matter, that every day is worth showing up for, and that the version of you today, softened by experience, weathered by time, is more than enough. You know, one of the beautiful things about getting older is that we start to see life with a deeper kind of clarity. The noise starts to fade, and what's really important begins to shine through. And that brings us to another powerful sign that you're truly winning at this stage of life. You're still able to connect with others in a meaningful way. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be the life of the party or always surrounded by people. In fact, as we age, many of us find that we crave fewer but deeper relationships. What matters is that you still make room for connection, whether that's a weekly phone call with your sister, a neighbor you wave to every morning, or just sharing a quiet coffee with an old friend. If your heart still opens to others, if you still care, listen, laugh, and share stories, then your life is far from lonely, even if it's quieter than it used to be. You might be surprised how many people, once they hit a certain age, start to shrink into themselves. Sometimes it's because of loss, sometimes health, sometimes they just feel like the world has moved on without them. But if you still reach out, if you still let people in, still take the time to ask, "How are you?" and really mean it, that's a quiet kind of bravery, and it keeps your soul healthy. I once met a gentleman in his 80s at a local diner. He sat alone at the counter with a little notepad in front of him. I asked what he was writing, and he told me, "Names of people I want to check in on this week. You know, just in case they need to hear a friendly voice." Isn't that something? That kind of intentional connection is rare, and it's powerful. It reminds people they matter, and it reminds you that you matter too. And while we're talking about things that keep you strong inside, let's not forget about the ability to adapt. Oh yes, adaptability. At 70 and beyond, life keeps changing. Maybe your neighborhood looks different. Maybe the routines that used to define your day have shifted. Maybe your hands don't work quite the same way, or the stairs feel a little steeper than they did 10 years ago. But if you found a way to adjust, to keep showing up in a world that moves faster than ever, then that's another clear sign you're not just doing okay, you're thriving. Adapting doesn't mean you always enjoy the changes. Sometimes you roll your eyes at technology, or you miss the way things used to be. That's completely natural. But if you're still willing to try, still willing to figure it out, even slowly, then you're demonstrating something many younger people haven't even mastered yet: flexibility of spirit. Maybe you learned how to shop online. Maybe you adjusted to a new medication or moved to a smaller place and made it your own. Maybe you've even had to navigate life after a loss and still found a way to keep going. That, right there, is strength. Quiet, unshakable strength. Not everyone has it, but if you do, you're ahead of the game. You see, one of the biggest myths about aging is that we become set in our ways. And sure, we all have our preferences. But many of the wisest, kindest, and most inspiring people I've ever met in their 70s and 80s were also the most open to learning. They knew how to flow around obstacles. They knew how to make peace with what couldn't be changed and take action where they could. That kind of adaptability doesn't come from being lucky. It comes from choosing, over and over again, to say yes to life, even when it's unfamiliar. And that, gently to the next quiet but powerful sign that you're still winning at life, you can still find joy in the little things. Let that one sink in for a second. You can still smile at a sunny morning, still appreciate the smell of coffee or the softness of your favorite sweater, still chuckle at a silly commercial or get misty-eyed at a piece of music you love. These moments, these small, seemingly insignificant flashes of beauty or peace, they mean your heart is still open, your spirit is still alive. It's easy to overlook joy when we're younger. always rushing from one thing to the next. But with age, we learn how precious those little moments are. If you can sit quietly on a porch and feel grateful, if you can hold a grandchild's hand or stroke a cat's fur and feel a sense of calm, then you're living with presence. You're really living. I once visited a woman who had just turned 79. She had limited mobility and spent most of her days indoors. But when I asked her how she stayed positive, she said something that stuck with me. Every morning, I look out my window and count the birds. That's how I know the day has started. It sounds so simple, but that kind of mindful attention to small joys is the heart of a full life. And here's the truth. Joy doesn't always come in fireworks. Sometimes it's just a warm blanket, a remembered melody, or the way your tea tastes exactly right. If you still notice those things, if you still feel them, you're not missing out. You're tuned in. So just take a moment and ask yourself, did you smile today? Did you feel even a little bit of comfort, connection, or peace? Because if the answer is yes, then yes, you're still winning. And so here we are. We've talked about how movement, curiosity, connection, adaptability, and finding joy in the little things are signs that you're not just getting by, you're flourishing in ways that really matter. But there's one more piece to this beautiful puzzle, and in many ways, it's the one that holds all the others together. If, at 70, you can still look forward to something, anything at all, whether it's a visit from your grandchildren, a favorite show coming on tonight, a walk in the morning, or even just watering your plants tomorrow, then you are, without a doubt, still living with purpose. And that, more than anything, is the heartbeat of a life well lived. Having something to look forward to keeps your days meaningful. It gives your mind a reason to stay sharp and your heart a reason to stay open. It could be something small, like calling an old friend, planning your next meal, or starting a new book. Or maybe it's something bigger, like celebrating your next birthday, taking a short trip, or learning something new just for the joy of it. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be a job or a mission or some major accomplishment. At this stage, it often shows up in smaller, more personal ways. It might be how you check in on your neighbor, or how you pass on a recipe to your granddaughter, or how you keep a little notebook of things that make you smile. These are all little acts of purpose, and each one adds meaning to your life and to the lives of those around you. Some people worry that if they're not busy or productive in the traditional sense, then they've lost their usefulness. But that couldn't be further from the truth. If your presence brings peace, if your words bring comfort, if your smile makes someone else's day better, then you're doing something deeply important. Purpose doesn't fade with age. It just evolves. I once met a retired teacher in her early 70s. She told me that for years, her purpose was her classroom. After she retired, she feared she had nothing left to offer. But over time, she started writing letters, real handwritten letters, to her former students, just to say hello and share a memory. Some of them wrote back, some didn't. But that small act gave her days new meaning. It reminded me, she said, that my life still has threads running through other people's lives. I'm still part of something bigger. That's what purpose does. It connects us to something beyond ourselves. It reminds us that we still have chapters left to write, even if the pace is slower, even if the handwriting has changed. And now, looking at all of this together, your ability to move, to stay curious, to connect, to adapt, to find joy, and to look forward, you start to see a pattern. These aren't just signs that you're surviving. They're signs that your spirit is still vibrant, that your life is still rich with moments that matter. So often, people fear aging because they think the best is behind them. But you've shown that's not true. Because if you're still laughing, still learning, still showing up for the people you care about, and still dreaming, even small dreams, then you haven't stopped living. You've just learned how to live smarter, slower, and with more heart. And let's be honest, not everyone makes it this far. 70 isn't a given, it's a privilege. If you've made it here, and you're still upright, still thinking, still caring, still trying, then you're doing better than you think. You've got wisdom in your corner, you've got stories no one else can tell. And most of all, you've got a perspective that this world desperately needs. The world rushes past so fast these days. But you, at your pace, in your own time, are a reminder that slowing down doesn't mean stopping. It means noticing. It means savoring. It means living deeper, not less. So here's what I hope you take from all this. You don't need to be the fittest, the flashiest, or the fastest. You just need to be you, fully present, still growing, still noticing beauty, still loving, still choosing to wake up and make the most of the day ahead, even if it's simple, even if it's quiet. Because that is what winning looks like. If anything in this video made you smile or made you think, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments. I truly believe we learn the most from each other. Maybe you've got a little daily ritual that brings you joy, or a memory that keeps you grounded. Don't be shy. Your words might just be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found this helpful or comforting in any way, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. This channel is here for you, to inspire, to uplift, and to remind you that every chapter of life has value. Because it's true, aging isn't about losing who we are. It's about becoming more of who we've always been. So here's to you, the movement, the curiosity, the laughter, the resilience, the joy, and the purpose that you carry every day. Here's to living your best life, at any age. And most of all, here's to still being in the game.